This is Christian Book Blurb, brought to you by author and songwriter Matt McChlery. Get a behind-the-scenes glimpse into the lives of some of your favourite Christian authors, hear about their books and faith. Also, why not check out my website, mattmcclery.com. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Christian Book Blurb, where we like to encourage you in your discipleship one book at a time, as we meet some amazing Christian authors and learn all about their books, their lives, and their faith. I'm your host, Matt McChlery, and thank you for clicking over here and joining me on today's episode. Now, on today's show, I'm going to be talking about saying goodbye to anxiety with the authors. We've got co-authors today, and I'll be speaking with Ellie Limebear and Jane Kirby. So welcome to the show, ladies. Hello, Jane.
Hi, Matt. Really pleased to be here. Thank you for having us.
And Ellie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello. Thank you so much for having us, Matt. It's a joy to be here, so thank you.
So let's start off with a fairly obvious question, I suppose. Your book is called Say Goodbye to Anxiety. Why write a book about it? Is anxiety something Christians really struggle with?
They do. Actually, Ellie and I were at a festival over the weekend, and we spoke on a panel on anxiety, and the room was absolutely packed. And what struck me were they were all different ages. So there were teenagers there were young adults, there are people of every different demographic and age. So yes, lots of Christians experience anxiety.
And do you think levels of anxiety seem to be rising in our culture today?
I think that's an interesting question, because people have talked over the younger generation, say they're their anxious generation. But I just feel that a lot of people live with it and don't realise they've got it. So, yeah, I think it's... And that was interesting. Somebody came up to us afterwards and said, I actually didn't realise I had anxiety. I had all these symptoms, but I didn't realise that's what it was until I came to your session. So she then is going to do something about it.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It depends who you speak to about anxiety, because some people say, well, it's always been there, and we're just more aware of it now. We talk about it now. We feel able to express ourselves and talk about it. And then you have others who sort of say, oh, well, since COVID, things have got worse and people's anxiety has increased. And well, it might be a mixture of both, really.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that, honestly. It feels like I remember being a teenager and having a friend who would organise to meet up, but she would kind of cancel every time, and I'd be so confused. I didn't understand why she was constantly cancelling on me. There was such confusion of, do you not like me? Do you what was going on here? But now I look back, the bigger thing was that she was struggling with anxiety, and no one knew how to communicate about that. We didn't have the language. We didn't know that this is what so many of us were going through. No one knew how to talk about it. But now I'm so glad there's language and professionals and knowledge about it, that now we can actually talk about it, and now get help and talk, and now there's things in place that we know works, that there's things that we can do actively that really help. So I'm so grateful for now there's a conversation about it, even though it's not, we don't want to be having this conversation. It's not like, yay, like let's talk about anxiety, like we love this. It's like, but this is kind of why we wrote the book too. It's like we want to help people, those who maybe similar to me didn't even know that I was struggling, but now we've got language for it. We've both got tools that we want to kind of pass on to people. It's like passing on the baton of like, this is what's helped us. And this book now is full of things that we want to pass on to help you, men and women all over the world. Do you know what I mean? This is not just for ladies. This is for, we know that anxiety has a grip on so many of us, young and old, men and women all over the world, and we need help. We want to come together and say, let's get through this together, and here is some helpful tools that have helped us. So that's I'm glad the conversation is opening up for sure.
You both mentioned that you've struggled with anxiety yourselves. So you're well placed to write a book about it. Can you share some of your story with us? What did it look like when you were struggling, or do you still struggle with anxiety? How did you cope, and kind of what sort of things got you through?
Yeah, I mean, I got in a very dark place. I describe it as a pit of anxiety, and I didn't think I was going to get out of it. It sort of happened suddenly, really. But I actually think that God just wanted to deal with some of the things I'd never processed properly in my life, and some of the wounds that I'd had and trauma I'd experienced that had, I don't know, affected the way I behaved, I suppose. And, wounds have become infected. And I don't know whether people think God, God allows certain things. I don't know theology behind it, but it happened to me and God used it for good. So what happened was I was, in a deep, dark pit, and the only way that I could look out of that pit was to Jesus and look at the promises in his word, believe that they were for myself, seek help. I went to a doctor, I went on medication, I had counselling, I had a lot of prayer. I used to go regularly to a prayer ministry near where I used to live in London. And actually, that is something that I really, really recommend, is not to be afraid to go up for prayer after the church service. I feel like so many people are hesitant of sharing and letting people into their story. And I say don't, because actually when something is out in the light, it loses its power. And that is such a powerful thing to do, to speak to someone, share it, and then you're not alone. That was so profound for me. And just also the prophetic, where people were able to speak into my life and give me words of knowledge that spoke directly into previous situations, things that had happened as I was growing up, to show me that actually God was right there in the pain, in the difficult things that I went through, but I just didn't know at the time. So I'm able to now look back and see God's plan and purpose for my life and how he's brought me out of a dark place. But the other thing I would say about that dark place is I think we're afraid. I was certainly afraid to go through pain. I just wanted God to heal me just like that. I remember saying, Lord, heal me, just heal me, heal me. But he needed me to go through a process to actually cling on to him, to seek him with all my heart. That thing about seek first his kingdom and all of these things will be added unto you. I had to really seek him, and that involves so many things. But yeah, that's my story. But I'm out the other side. But that's not to say that it doesn't try and sneak in, like a rat up a drain pipe. Tries to scurry its way in, but I've got the tools now to bat it away, to push it back down and get it back in the drain where it belongs.
Thanks, Jane. Ellie,
So
how
good.
about you?
Yeah, I think for me, it's been a different process and journey. I only really realised that it was anxiety, fear that had been gripping onto me only about 5 years ago, I'd say. And it was one evening in lockdown, honestly, when God just revealed to me it's fear that has been eating you alive this whole time. And then now I look back on myself even as a little girl, and I can see that it has sneaked in to my life, into my being from a young age. But again, like I said, I didn't have the language for it. I didn't know what that was, and the things that I was going through, and the panic attacks. And so it's definitely been almost, these past 5 years of really understanding what's been going on, and really I guess God's just been revealing to me so much what the spirit of fear does too. And it's that's been holding me back, keeping me inside, stopping me from doing so much. And also just like the really little kind of not even big things that would terrify me, but it would be the things like going to the post office or riding my bike, things like that. That is for so many people so normal and easy to do. But actually, for me, it was a real battle to do almost the simple things, to leave my house at times. I felt like I was kind of barricaded into my home because of fear. And it's really just been a journey of claiming freedom, of him really renewing my mind too. Like, I really want to emphasize the fact that that isn't just a cute little verse in the Bible, that he renews our mind. Like, that truly is a profound thing that he can do. Our God can renew our mind and rewire and do like gentle healing too. And I think that is the horrible reality of anxiety, is that it could be so loud and so overbearing and so all-consuming, wraps you up that you feel like you have no choice, and to come under it. And I think it's so horrible that so many of us all around the world come under it, feel under it, and can't see hope. We can't see almost the future or the next thing because it's so overbearing. And I think also in my process, honestly, in my journey with anxiety, is that I didn't let anyone in for a really long time. I almost kept it quite quiet. Not even my family really knew, my friends. My husband was still trying to like understand what was going on. Like, why else? You could do that yesterday. Why can't you do that today? Or I look back and like, I didn't let anyone in. And that was such a roadblock for me, because the moment we let people in and we be vulnerable with people, there's an instant accountability. There's an instant guard down, that people can check in and pray and declare things over you. But I think for so long I just kept it to myself. The moment I let people in, there was such a huge turn for me. And so it's been a process of claiming the freedom, of really giving it all to God. I mean, there's so much to talk about even in that, but I've, through prayer and declaration, definitely like the stronghold of anxiety has been broken. But I don't want to lie and say it doesn't creep up now and again, like I said. But I know now how to kind of shut down as soon as, and know that the spirit within me is stronger than the spirit in the world, and that we do live with the Holy Spirit, and what a beautiful gift that is. And to tell fear to shut up again and again and again.
That's great. That's great, Elle. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. You have written your book, Say Goodbye to Anxiety, in a short devotional style. Is there a reason why you did it this way? Does it help someone who's feeling anxious to engage more? Or what was the thought behind, presenting it in a more of a short piece devotional format rather than writing a book and lots of detail on anxiety?
I think sometimes when you read a book, you can gain a lot of knowledge. But when you read a devotional, it is about the heart. And obviously, books aren't all about head knowledge. But, you read a book and then you get to the end of the chapter and you think, okay, well, what do I do now? I've got all this knowledge, but actually, how do I put it into practice? So by having a Bible verse, having a reflection, having a worship song, having some journaling questions, it's interactive. You're having to connect with the Bible, you're connecting with your thoughts and what's going on inside, and you're giving them to God and you're inviting him in. So and I think also when you're going through anxiety, you don't need a sensory overload because there's enough going on already. So just to have something that you can do each day in the quiet, in your quiet space, in your place with Jesus, having that dedicated time each day to reflect, to rest, to listen to something is I think for someone going through, or we think for someone who's going through anxiety, it's a helpful way to put it together.
Great. And you also have a space for journaling, and you suggest also some practical exercises, and you suggest songs to listen to that fit with the day's theme. Why did you include some of these more interactive elements? It really makes the book great, by the way, I think. But why did you include them?
Thanks, Matt.
Oh, thank you, Matt. Yeah, I feel like I guess me personally, I find those things really helpful is when there's an interactive part of it, not only the journaling, but the song to listen to, for all the senses sort of thing. Like you're listening, you're reading, you're taking it all in. But I feel we wanted to include a song for every day as just the soundtrack for the day. You know, songs are so, I mean, I love writing songs anyway, but I know that songs can get in your head, truth can get in your head. And so we really wanted a song for each day for those they could just have that on repeat almost the rest of the day, going to work, put it in your car after you've read your devotional, or as you're cooking the dinner, as you're bathing your kids, whatever it looks like, to have that song that really coincides with what we've been talking about on that specific day. Like it's specifically chosen the lyrically, you know, for that day, to just remind us of what we've been talking about, the truth, and for it to spark throughout the day too. Like we hope that it kind of resonates throughout the day, and to have conversations about it, you know, with different people even. So we wanted there to be an interactive element, and with the journaling questions, it's just helpful to exercise that out. And I think, you know, it's when you write things out physically, like we're not even typing here, it's like physically using your pen and writing this stuff out. It's such a process as you do it, spending time with the Lord. So we wanted it to be interactive for sure.
In the very first chapter, you open with the statement, God is the God of hope. So how important is it for us to know this truth, especially when we are feeling anxious?
It's absolutely foundational, because anxiety takes away your hope. You're anxious about tomorrow, you're anxious about today, you're anxious about all the things you've got to do, you're anxious that you won't get better. This is it. And that is what actually, for me, that was one of the biggest issues. I thought I would never get better. I thought that was it. But that's not God's story for our life. He's given us hope, and hope is the anchor of our soul. And I picture an anchor. And when we were writing that, I really sensed when there's a warship and it uses an anchor, and those anchors aren't small, they're huge. But the Bible talks about hope being the anchor, and everything that God does is bigger than big. It's, you know, he speaks everything into being. And this anchor is huge, and we can believe in it. We can trust that hope is the anchor of our soul, that hope is our story, that things will get better. And you just have to read the Bible and see the stories and the pattern of it, that everybody goes through difficult times in their lives, but they always get through. They always get through to the other, and God uses it for good. And that's the hope we have in Jesus.
And you talk about the dangers of comparison as well. Why is it so dangerous? And how can we live differently, or how can we stop this need to compare ourselves to others all the time?
Yeah, I think comparison, they say, don't they? Comparison really takes the joy out of everything. It's the thief of joy, comparison. And I know we can all relate to that. There's not probably one person that has never compared themselves to anyone or to a particular thing. But I know in my life, when that can creep up, the most powerful thing to do is to celebrate the person or to celebrate the thing, whatever it is, and turn it around and flip it. It's like we can sit in that place for however long. Do you know what I mean? If you don't deal with it, it just lingers, it grows, it festers. Jealousy, bitterness, comparison just it leaks, you know. But I think if we don't act on it quick, if we don't almost assess what's going on and kind of see from afar, to celebrate the person, it's so powerful to be grateful for the things that we have too. I think gratitude is a huge element with anxiety, that again, it's not a little thing. It's, you know, in the Bible it talks about give thanks, give thanks, give thanks. And that's a lesson to us all, is to give thanks. Like that should be a daily thing anyway, to give thanks to God. But when comparison arises, to give thanks for things is so powerful, to realize what we've been given and to where we are is the right place, to our surroundings we're in the right place. And actually, if we were given the things that maybe other people were given, it wouldn't fit us. You know, Joseph's coat was for Joseph, you know, and if we were to put that on, it, you know, too big, too smelly, I don't know, too stripy. It's like, it's not for us. So I think we got to really like give thanks to God for the things that we have received, and the timing for healing is going to come, you know, to not compare one another, that's happened for them then, or that's the transformation that's happened for them now. It's like, be patient, give thanks to God for what is happening in your life right now, what you're learning, the revelation, and get alongside people who are thankful, because it changes you.
Speaking of alarms and waking up, you also mention in your book about peaceful sleep. Why is sleep so important, and how can we sleep peacefully in the midst of trouble?
I love that question. I've found a game changer for me is just saying the name of Jesus over and over again in my head. Literally, it's been transformational, because that's the only thing I can think about is Jesus. So I just say Jesus, Jesus. I mean, I don't speak it out loud because I'd wake my husband up. But just saying it again and again, and it might take a little while, but I get back to sleep or get off to sleep, even if my head's whirring. But I was also very thankful when I was actually so unwell that I was able to sleep, and that was a gift. And that's the other thing is, you know, God gives us sleep if we ask for it, and trust Him that He will give it to us.
Now, you've got another chapter in your book called Angels. It's an interesting chapter. Why angels? And how can angels help with anxiety?
Yes. I don't know about you, but I am just fascinated with angels anyway. I just think they are real. And how wild is that? That angels are real. And we don't talk about them, do we? We don't really
You're right. We
often even like hear about them. We don't, it's not in lots of like sermon messages but I have just forever been so fascinated with angels. And that verse, Psalm 91, that talks about, you know, God sends his angels concerning you to guard you. And like, it's in the Bible, it's truth. I'm just like, wow, that's really cool. And what that means for us when we're struggling with anxiety, fear, whatever, you know, almost fill in the blank, really, that God sends his angels concerning us. And I guess it's like, it's an interesting chapter because, people might know that they are, you know, they have angels concerning them, but I think it's a good reminder, honestly, that it's God who sends his angels. And you know, all that that verse that talks about, it's not against flesh and blood, is it? It's what goes on, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark. And there's a bigger thing going on than our mind right now. Do you know what I mean? And that there's things that are going on in the spiritual realm. God sending his angels to fight for us, you know, that it's pretty profound. And as a Christian, as believers, to be aware of that too, that it's not just like little us fighting on our own. You know, it's like God is sending his angels to fight for us too, to guard us, to protect us. And whether we feel that, whether we know that, it is true. So we wanted to include this chapter just to remind people, like, there's angels out there. Let us not forget, it's a beautiful, beautiful reality.
Just before we go for a quick break, what top tips would you give to someone who is listening to this podcast and is struggling with anxiety right now?
I would say don't be afraid to go and see your doctor. I went on medication, and that was very helpful when I was really struggling to even things up for me and put me in a position where I could actually sort of seek more help, have counselling. I would also say to find somebody that you can confide in. Have somebody who comes alongside you, who can pray with you, but also know that people will put boundaries in place as well when you seek help, which is a good thing. So don't be put off if someone says, well, I can see you on Tuesday for half an hour. Accept it, because it's helpful, I think, to have that time as a focus, but also to know that we don't need to be reliant on people to get through this, as in totally reliant, but they are there to come alongside us. The other thing I would say is use your Bible, get it out. I mean, I'm sure people are using their Bibles and they are getting them out, but I found it really helpful to keep repeating Bible verses, to ask God for Bible verses, to speak them out. Those are the things. I mean, there are lots of different things. Ellie will probably talk about a couple of others, but those are the things that were really key for me, is prayer, medication, and the Bible.
For each of us, there's so many different things that for all of us, that help. For me, honestly, worship was such a huge thing. I remember being not in a good place at all, but the only thing I could really do is just like put on some worship music and just lie there and just have truth wash over me, get in my head. There'd be times where I couldn't even have words. It would have to be instrumental music, like worship music. And so worship has been such a integral part of my life anyway, as a worship leader, to like knowing the power of songs, the power of truth in songs, the power of the spirit in songs, that actually they're not just nice melodies, it's not just a nice tune, but actually it gets inside of us and tells our mind otherwise what's going on, the truth. And there was this one song that I would listen to over and over again, which was called Praise Before My Breakthrough by Katie Torwall and Brian. And it was that for me. It's just like praise before praise before I get better, praise before I can see like the other side. It's just, I'm gonna be here, Lord, and I'm gonna praise my way through it. Praise before my breakthrough. And again, that's not like a worldly thing to do. Do you know what I mean? That's not what a pop song says to do, but like that's what a worship song tells us and reminds us, is that, yeah, we're going to praise before our breakthrough. We're going to praise before it even happens, before the timing of our breakthrough. But worship has been such a huge part of my story. And even in my writing process, is writing from that place of like, I push back this darkness. And I've got a song coming out called By Fear, and it talks all about that. It's like, get out, don't come back anymore, by fear. We're changing the locks here, like you cannot come back. But it, for me, even writing about it, writing the process of, please do not come back again. And I claim the joy, claim the freedom, peace, make yourself at home within me, please. So worship has been a huge thing. Again, gratitude, but also practical things, letting people know, letting people in, telling people in that moment when I feel anxious, is like just actually naming it. It's like, I feel anxious today, or I feel anxious about this. Just telling you, because who knows how it's going to fester today, So I think actually speaking out loud as soon as you feel anxiety is really important.
Thank you. Really helpful. Thank you. We're going to be coming back and speaking with Jane Kirby and Ellie Limebear again just after this short break.
If you enjoy listening to this podcast, you can help keep it on the web. All you've got to do is buy me a coffee. head over to buymeacoffee.com/Matt McChlery to make a donation. There is a link in this episode's show notes. So go on, buy me a coffee today and help this podcast to keep supporting Christian books and authors.
Hello, welcome back to the Christian Book Blurb podcast. I'm speaking with Ellie Limebear and Jane Kirby about their book, Say Goodbye to Anxiety. Now, Ellie and Jane, just before the break, we spoke a lot about your book, but this side of the interval, we like to chat a bit more about the authors themselves, find out a little bit more about your lives and what you get up to when you're not writing books. So what do you guys do for fun?
We actually both live by the sea, but in different locations. So I love swimming in the sea. I love going to the beach, and and going for walks. That's what I love doing. There's nothing better. There's nothing better than being outside.
I love drinking coffee and going, just wandering around our town with my family. I've got 2 little boys and my husband. I love, honestly, just hanging out with people. I'm such a people person. So people come around, hanging out, chatting, deep chats. But I love the sunshine. So anytime the sun is out, I'm there. But yeah, love food. Brunch is my favorite thing in the world. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
I was going to ask what your favorite foods are. So yours is brunch. Ellie and Jane, do you have a favorite food?
Yogurt, muesli, and fruit kind of girl. I just love it. I could eat it every day. I love cereal and almond croissants and fish and chips. My husband works at a Christian trust, Ashburnham Place, and they've just had a bakery there, and they make the most amazing almond croissants. They are the best. They're worth travelling for, I tell you.
Oh, yum.
Lovely. Sound amazing. If you got to choose a cartoon character to be, or that represented you, perhaps, which cartoon character might you pick?
Scooby-Doo.
Love it. Cartoon character. That is such a good question. One of the 7 dwarfs or something. I've got little legs, so.
So have you got any family at all?
Yes, I'm married to Tom. We have been married for 7 years now. We've got 2 little boys who are aged 3 and 1, but we live in Brighton, and I've got family down the road too, which is lovely. I'm the eldest of 6, so the majority of us around the corner. But
nice.
Yeah, so my little sister literally lives at the bottom of our road, so that is wonderful. But yeah, quite a big fam, but trying to see each other as much as we can. How about you, Jane?
I'm the eldest of 5. I've got husband James. I was going to tell you about my siblings, but I thought actually we'd be here forever. I have got 2 grown-up sons. One is 23 and the other is 20. And they are great.
And is writing books all you do?
No. I publish a magazine called Truth, which we've just achieved charitable status, so we're called Truth Generation. And our vision is to, it's in the name, truth, share truth, the rising generation. So to help make disciples of those who come to faith, but also encourage and reach out to people who aren't Christians and for people to know their true worth in Jesus. So that's the other thing I do, and speak at different events and in my church. So quite a full but a good life.
That's great. And Ellie, I know you've mentioned before your involvement in the music world. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, just want to shout out Truth Magazine though. If you're listening and you're curious, go get it. It's amazing. It's full of just amazing things. So not only get the book, but get the mag, okay?
Thanks, Ellie.
Yes, so I am I lead worship, write songs, and it's really a joy just to kind of see what God is doing all over the world, really, within the church, but also just in general, just get to go to lots of different youth events, conferences, church gatherings. But it's a real joy to see the young people like just going for it at the moment. Gen Z, it's so inspiring how they're leading, how they're seeking Jesus. It's so inspiring, honestly. I'm challenged everywhere I go at the moment, just by their hearts for Jesus, honestly. So yeah, I guess writing songs, got new music coming out soon, but I love it. I love being, that I get to do this. So it's a real joy to collaborate with different people, different artists, and also just mumming a lot of the time. A mum, that is my main my main role. So juggling all the things, traveling at the ton with my family, whilst also raising two little men. So it's a full life, but grateful.
Yeah, wonderful. That's great. And just before we wind up this episode, could you tell us where people can find out more about you, where people can get the book? Have you got a website, all that kind of stuff?
You can find me on Instagram, for my own Instagram, which is Jane Elizabeth Kirby, or Rebel Hearts, Rebel Girls, and that is the website as well. And the book, you can get it from any online retailer, I think, bookshop, or go into a real bookshop. St Andrew's Bookshop stocks it, and a number of other Christian bookshops. But yeah, if you were going to go online, you can get it in WH Smith's, wherever you get your books from.
Wonderful.
You can find me at Ellie_Limebear on Instagram. I think it's the same on Facebook, but I'm mostly on Instagram, and my website is ellielimebear.co.uk. But yeah, like Jane said, you can get the book in many, many places, which is really good news.
And they can listen to your music on music platforms,
on Spotify,
I imagine,
Apple
as well.
Music, YouTube, all the places.
Really excited for Ellie's new song to come out, Bye Bye Fear. I did hear it some time ago, and I've heard her sing it a couple of times, but it is incredibly powerful, and I feel that it's a chain breaker. I believe it's a chain breaker. Yeah, it's amazing, absolutely amazing.
Thank you,
anointed
Jane.
song.
Well, thank you both so much for joining me today, Ellie Limebear and Jane Kirby. Thank you so much for coming and chatting with us here on the Christian Book Blurb. Thank you.
Thank you for having us, Matt. It's been absolutely privileged, and thank you for all the great questions you've asked as well.
Yes, thank you, Matt. See you soon.
And thank you for listening to this episode of the Christian Book Blurb podcast. I pray that you've been blessed by what you've heard and that you've been able to take something away with you to help you with your own discipleship. Do check out my newsletter. Sign up on my website, mattmcclery.com, and every now and then I send out a newsletter and give away some of the books that we've been talking about here on the Christian Book Blurb podcast. So do go check that out over on my website. But that just leaves me to say thank you for listening, and I look forward to the pleasure of your company once again on another edition of the Christian Book Blurb, where I'll be speaking with more Christian authors about their books, their lives, and their faith. See you soon. Goodbye. Thanks for listening to Christian Book Blurb with your host, Matt McChlery. Do give it a like, give it a share, and let your friends know all about it. We do hope to see you again soon on another Christian Book Blurb.